Hello, everyone, and good evening. I want to introduce myself. My name is DeAnna Swope, and I am the host of Sign Your Truth. I am thrilled to introduce our illustrious panelists. We have episode one, but before I go forward with explain, I want to give you a visual description for those individuals who are visually impaired so that you have access to what I look like. I'm wearing an orange blouse that is V-neck with black rimmed glasses that are gold framed on the bottom. I have locks that fall to my torso area. I have a pink watch. I am seated behind a white wall. I have a lamp that is to the left of me that is black and white lampshade. And with that being said, that is what I look like. Navigating what narcissism looks like in a relationship. This topic we think about when we're in a relationship, and oftentimes it's something we don't openly talk about. We sometimes are in our honeymoon phase and we think, this isn't something to talk about, but it's something that's needed, right? Sometimes it's not even something that we're aware of in terms of what narcissism actually looks like. And so I want to invite these panelists who are very excited to jump on board to have this open conversation about what narcissism looks like. What have they seen with either friends, families, relationship mates? So with that being said, here are our panelists. MeLisa. If we don't mind having MeLisa come on screen, please. MeLisa Dennis. MeLisa is saying, hello, everyone. Hi, good evening, everyone. I am MeLisa Dennis. I'm a Black woman. I have on a yellow t-shirt that reads love on it. I have gray framed glasses with an African print head wrap with purple lipstick on. DeAnna saying, thank you so much for that description. May we have Jillian come on.
Hello, my name is Jillian. This is my sign name, and I'm a white woman with brownish gray long hair. I have gold hoop earrings on, and I have a white pinkish type of Apple Watch band on and some bracelets, and I'm sitting in front of a light blue grayish background, and I'm wearing a solid black short sleeve V-neck shirt. And I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Thank you, Jillian. This is DeAnna speaking. If we can have Lilly come on screen, please.
Hello, my name is Lilly Benedict, and this is my sign name. And I am a white woman with grayish hair. I have a blue background, and I am wearing a black short sleeve V-neck t-shirt, and I have on an Apple Watch with a solid silver band on and some rings.
This is DeAnna speaking. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, my husband, Thomas. Hello, everyone, and good evening. I am Thomas Swoop. I am here wearing a brown long sleeve button down shirt. It has a collar. I have on square rimmed glasses. I am bald headed, no hair. And I'm behind a tan wall. This is DeAnna speaking. Thank you so much for being here this evening. This is a taboo topic. And our viewers, I want you to feel free to make your comments or questions. We will pause during our conversation and hear from you and respond. I also want you to feel free to share your experience as well. So with that being said, are you all ready for the first question? Ready to jump on in?
Yes. Yes.
So firstly, narcissism. Can you explain what that looks like in a relationship?
All right.
Yes. Take it away, Jillian.
Okay, well, I have to start with the definition of narcissism to break the ice, right? So
Yes,
let's get this
ma'am.
conversation started. Okay, so basically, I know that this panel is mostly focused on narcissism in relationships because we know that narcissism can happen, though, in any type of relationship, friendships, family, not just romantic relationships, in the workplace, any setting. But basically, narcissism is when a person's only focused on themselves. They only care about themselves. That's their value. They value themselves and only care about themselves and their actions and their words and their feelings and not how they impact other people. And they do not have the ability to self-evaluate and kind of be introspective about their behaviors, their actions, who they are, and how they're causing other issues with other people. They're unable to recognize that and be introspective. So again, that's what narcissism is on the surface level. Of course, there are so many layers to narcissism and so much more we can add to this definition, but this is just to start us off.
This is DeAnna speaking. Thank you for that. We don't have these kinds of conversations, right? Where we actually sit and have those heart to heart kind of conversations where we ask ourselves, what does a healthy relationship look like, right? Narcissism isn't mentioned often, right? In the deaf and hard of hearing community, do we have access to that level of information, right? Do we have the tools to be able to know what to expect and to what to look out for? Oftentimes not, right? That's the missing information that we often have. So we think about, incidental learning, right? Oftentimes we don't have access to incidental learning or incidental information. And so where do we get that from? So we need to really take accountability and really reach out to individuals where, some of us don't take that accountability, right? They said, we should know better, right? We're like, hey, you should know better, honey. But at the same time, we love them, and we have to make sure that when we're reaching out to people, that they're open and their hearts are open and their minds are open for the feedback that we want to give. And once we've done our part, we've done our part, right? Yes, Thomas. So my first experience with narcissism was during my teenage years. I think that was around, person was around 25. They didn't really care about whom they were hurting, and including my feelings as well. And I remember having that experience and thinking about it. And I didn't have the word for it, right? But I remember how it made me feel. And I know how they were hurting other people. And that was my first exposure and kind of a wake up call for me, where I was experiencing someone who just thought purely and only about themselves. And it wasn't a pleasant experience at all. Yes, this is DeAnna speaking. Jillian.
Yes, I also want to add to what Deanna explained a bit earlier. So narcissism is very abstract. It's an abstract concept. It's not like you can physically or visibly see it, kind of like abuse, for example. If you see physical abuse, you know it's abuse. However, narcissism is more abstract. I mean, I was with someone like that for almost 10 years. I didn't even realize it. Of course, I felt discontent. I saw red flags. I felt the warning signs and things like that. And but like as far as that behavior is, I knew people would say you don't deserve that behavior and that kind of thing. But again, just like instinctually, who that person is who they are, is their behaviors, of course. I just thought it was who they were. I thought it was normal. I thought it was just who they were. And then it wasn't until one other deaf woman explained to me directly her experience and her situation with a narcissistic abuser. And at that point, I was just like, wait a minute, that's exactly what I went through with the person who was abusing me. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that it was abuse. It's abuse point blank, period. It's narcissistic abuse. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so again, I just want to reiterate that I also, I'm on the same page when explaining what narcissism looks like and just opening up that conversation and just so that people are aware because people aren't usually aware of what narcissism is or what it looks like. And it's really hard to identify what narcissism is and really recognize that until perhaps the damage has already been done, and it's a little bit too late. And then you look back and you can realize the signs a lot clearly now. And that was for me too. If you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship, you just kind of see that you have to get it out. But then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was in there and I endured that for that amount of time. You just don't recognize it when you're going through it. It's not a concrete at all. And this is Lilly. So,
Yes.
yes, Jillian, to your point, exactly. It is abstract and something that is not easily recognized. And narcissism, means that the person really just loves and cares for themselves. And it's not really that they care for themselves. Underneath it all, they are void of feelings and they don't care for themselves. That's actually what narcissism is, you know? They don't have any feelings of love. They're void there. They don't actually care for themselves at all, So inside there's a void, and that's kind of what happens. And so they use other people to supply them. And so they feed off of other people to supply that void inside of them. And for example, it's kind of like think about a blind individual. You're writing down something on a piece of paper and you ask them to tell you what they see. And of course, the person's blind. They can't tell you what they see on the paper. You don't ask a blind person to read something that you wrote on a piece of paper. So similarly, with a narcissistic person, if you ask them how they're feeling, what's going on inside of them, they're not able to give you that answer that and delve in and tell you what that is. So yes.
Yes. I would say that a person who's narcissistic, it's like they're the timeline monster, right? I say that because, it's almost like they consume all of your time, right? They're abusing you. I mean, they have no sense of feelings. They have no sense of what they're really doing. Their goal in life is to destroy you. So they are the timeline monster or eater of your time.
Interesting.
That's, yes, Melissa. It's hard to explain. I mean, really, narcissism is this conversation is a healthy issue. I mean, a person who is born into a family, perhaps they don't have any communication, they're kind of alone and by themselves, they're learning that same behavior, right? They're learning what they're seeing, right? And they're thinking about me, and more me, right? They're not thinking about other people. So honestly, this is a healthy issue to really talk about because people don't really understand the root of the cause. So a person who is narcissistic, inside of them, they truly have no self-worth. They feel poor about themselves. And so therefore they mask that as I am doing well. And that masking continues until they really realize, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I'm lost in this process. And they can't do that until they really have an introspective perspective to really see what they're doing. Right. So it's something that we have to go back again to the root issue. Right. So a lot of times individuals who are narcissistic, they have been raised in a family that either are abusive, a number of them have, they've been sexually abused as youth, and that has led to that narcissistic behavior, or again, they didn't have that continuous love, or they had a distant relationships in their families. I'm actually looking into another workshop and I'm finding out more and more about this topic of narcissism, which really, if you think about it, I think about that. Was that me? Right? I actually have to ask my question like that, right? Who was I playing to be? What was I masking? And how did I stop masking that, right? When did I mask? When did I not mask? Right? So I know that oftentimes I would mask when I'm not feeling good about myself. And oftentimes when I'm not feeling good about myself, I take it out on others, make them feel bad. Right? So again, thinking about someone who's hurting someone else's feelings, thinking about why are they doing that? You may think, oh, no, 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 I'm not doing that. But again, if you think, they're not feeling safe. They're narcissistic. Again, we have to think about narcissistic behavior. The root cause is from childhood. And then from that childhood, they put on these various masks to really demonstrate something else, right? To quote unquote function in the world. Yes, Thomas. This is Thomas speaking. So you actually will see narcissistic behavior more and more, believe it or not. I mean, if you know exactly what it looks like, it will start to just you'll start to see it more often. Yes, Lilly.
Yes, like MeLisa said, how people are raised, their background, their environment also influences that as well. And people can pick up things from their environment. 50% is nature and 50% is nurture. And you kind of think about the nurture part, the hereditary part. And I think that's pretty interesting when you consider genetics.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is Melissa speaking. Right. A lot of this we can't control, right? Our environment, where we live. right? If we live in a nice neighborhood versus if we are living in an area that's highly polluted, right? It's highly toxic, etc., right? That we're taking in, we're inhaling that. Or if there's a family history of dysfunction, right, and you're not getting your needs met, right, you can see, you can run the gamut there. So we try our best to, raise our family the best way that we can. And again, exposure, right, that nature, right, right. If they are in a high crime neighborhood, right, that has either violence or rape or what have you, that impacts how you mask oneself, right? If you are raised in an environment where you're not engaged in love from a family, that leads to outcomes such as narcissism. This is DeAnna speaking. Yes, Jillian.
Yes, and that really ties into exactly this point here, how parents interact with their children, and that ties to the deaf community as well in a certain way. And I'll elaborate on that. I mean, I know this is a bigger discussion for another day, and we could go on and on forever about that topic. But I know, I
No,
see you, I
yes,
know.
the deaf community is,
Language.
listen, deaf community, there is narcissism breeding ground, right? Language deprivation that happens, breeding ground, right? There are some of those who, I mean, it's so bad, right? I mean, some of them have no language at all to express that they're actually being
Mhm.
narcissistic.
Yes, exactly. So social emotional learning,
Right,
SEL, completely missing, a lack thereof, definitely.
right. Cues, right? Jillian, I mean, how do they spot those cues to know those red flags? I'm seeing a number of hands raised, and DeAnna's like, well, we know our interpreters are working hard behind scenes trying to catch everybody, so I need to be the moderator and put everybody in control. Yes, Lilly, you're next.
Yes, language deprivation definitely ties into those points of narcissism. Now, as far as my experience, I've met many people and I recognize the red flags pretty fast, and I now have recognized them a lot faster over time. And most people who grow up in a deaf family, they have language access from a young age. And that's another topic for us to discuss another day when it comes to narcissism, but that's something to consider.
This is DeAnna speaking. So, narcissism could be seen as a security blanket for those individuals or kids that were raised with no access to communication on what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. Right. So you can, play the role, and after a while, it becomes problematic later on. Right. And so, unless you kind of break out of it, and I mean, you carry that security blanket with you throughout life's time until you break away from that security blanket and you start to really know and identify, what have I been storing up all of these years with that security blanket? Once you unpack that, you could find yourself. And so, just thinking about mental health, how can we see what people are experiencing and we say, oh, yeah, that's just problematic, or they're experiencing oppression, but what's the root of the issue? You know what? It's rare for them to do that unpacking, though. Rarely. It's rare, right? Because they don't know what they're looking for. Oftentimes folks don't know what they're unpacking to find. This is DeAnna. Yes, Jillian.
Yes, and I do want to add that I agree to that point, but it's interesting to use the word security blanket there, though, Deanna. I mean, I've never thought of that perspective, but maybe you're right because, well, okay. So there's two things as an example. If a person is lying, and then the second example would be, oh, I just had it, but I lost it. One example is lying, and another example is not apologizing about something, okay? So, I didn't have language, maybe about their language use, for example. A narcissism has to be in control of a situation. They always have to have the power and be in control of a situation, power and control. They may use manipulation as a way, means of gaining control of a situation. So let's use those two, a couple, as an example. There's a man and a woman. So the man, he's the narcissist in this example. Okay. So he gets a job and he comes back home and he says to his partner, look, I get paid $25 an hour. This is great. And the partner's like, okay, that's great. $25 an hour. I love that. And I know that, I know that our family will be stable now. We have our finances will be together because of this new job, and the woman, maybe she's staying home, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, and she's also in charge of the budgeting to make sure all the bills and needs are covered. So she's like, okay, we'll go ahead and pay for children to go to camp or something like that. Okay. So in this example, wait, is that? Yeah. So again, the woman, she's the one who's budgeting all of the money that they're bringing into the household from her partner's job. So she go ahead and pays for the children's camp registration fees, which are quite expensive. And so as time gets closer to the camp and she's already paid, I mean, it's getting close to time to pay. She hasn't paid. She tells the husband, okay, it's time to pay. And then he says, oh, I can't pay for that. I can't pay the fees for that. And of course, the mom, or she's very upset. She's like, I already registered them. They're signed up. They're excited. I told the kids already. They're ready to go to camp. The kids are super excited. And the husband is just like, no, I support you all in other ways. I pay all the bills. I support you all in all these different ways. So, I can't pay for the camp. And of course, the mom, the wife, she's feeling completely upset, and she wasn't budgeting. She only budgeted for 50 to pay 50%, and he's supposed to pay 100% of the fees. So my point of this story is this. Narcissism also can lead to financial abuse as well. And that's only one kind of abuse, from a narcissistic emotional relationship. Of course, there can be mental, psychological, emotional abuse too. But financial abuse is one thing that it can lead to in this example. And now the wife, she's completely feeling demoralized, thinking about not having money and then also looking at her credit score and how that is messed up as well. So when it comes to financial abuse, that can ruin a person's credit score. Thinking about buying a home or renting a home or something like that, once you don't have a good credit score, you can't get those things anymore. So again, going back to lying as an example of the narcissist making themselves look good. I'm a provider. I'm making $25 an hour. My family's security. I'm helping them out. I have all these things, but that was only to make themselves feel good and look good, and that was them masking to feel good. And we don't know if he really got a job that pays $25 an hour or however much money an hour. That might have just been him trying to make himself look good. And then and then once they're caught, they all of a sudden turn everything towards the other person and blame the kids, blame the family, blame the wife. And, it was a horrible situation. And then again, the wife and the family ends up being victimized because of this. All their money has been spent on other things. And this individual is blaming them, their husband, their partner is blaming them for all of these things that are happening, saying that they paid all these bills, they take care of us, we should have money left because they're making $25 an hour. And then the wife starts to doubt themselves and doubt everything that's going on. They started thinking, am I tripping? What's happening? I mean, all that doubt starts to fester internally, over such a long period of time as well, of experiencing that type of abuse and behavior, of being blamed for everything that happens and everything that's going wrong, and kind of questioning your sanity and doubting yourself and losing trust in yourself as well. So that can happen. I just think that's interesting that you use the word, DeAnna, security blanket, because I think you're right. All narcissists lie. They lie. And lying is their security blanket. And then once they're caught, they completely turn the situation and blame the other individual because they're
Mm-hmm.
losing their security blanket. And they
Mm-hmm.
don't take accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that was just
That's
one
right.
example. Ooh, I have so many examples I can think of. And
Yes,
this is
Lily.
Lily. Yes, that applies to another situation too. When we start thinking about accusatory behavior, blaming someone. So whenever a narcissist lies and someone sees them and they see it's a blatant lie, the narcissist 100% believes their own lie. And so they're confused as to why people are blaming them and questioning them. And then they have one lie over another and another to protect themselves, but they believe their own lie. And that causes even more issues, and that is because they believe the perception of themselves.
Yes, this is Thomas, right? You can see narcissists just keep on talking and talking and talking and talking, and it's just lies and lies and lies. But you want to they're trying to have people believe, what they're saying, but they're fighting with words. So I'm sitting there watching this narration of lies again and again, and I'm like, you just said this, but I'm like, I can't believe what you have said. And they're like, no, truly, believe me exactly what I'm telling you. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm just playing dumb. I'm like, what movie am I watching? This is crazy. Yes, Melissa. I remember that as a child. I mean, again, you have to remember as a kid, right? You know, you have to think about, automatically, they're trying to function in this world and they're trying to say what they're saying is true. And many times inside, they believe what they're saying is true. I mean, but they have no one there to tell them, as a child, sweetie, that's wrong and that's right, right? So they're believing what they're saying and doing is right. So how would you survive if you don't have someone inside of you or someone telling you what's right and what's wrong, right? You have to figure out how to survive on your own, right? Oftentimes, people who are narcissistic, again, look back at their childhood, right? And, you know, they're spending a lot of their time basically trying to survive in that environment and trying to navigate their way through. And they're trying to make themselves believe what they're actually saying, right? Because inside, they believe what they've just told you. So I think it's an interesting process if you really dissect it from various levels. Um, if you have someone who has a similar background, right? Truly, you have to think, right? Are you really believing this? And they'll say, yes, I am. What's wrong? Are you not believing me? Right? They actually question, like, questioning you, like, are you okay? Like, is something wrong with you? Um, and they truly believe, again, what they've said. So I think it's interesting. Yes, Jillian.
So narcissists also uh will okay. So if the victim is already starting to question whether they're a narcissist or not, or whether they believe them or believe the narcissist, even though it's a blatant lie, what they're saying is wrong, they will blame you for not believing them. The narcissist will say, "How dare you not believe me? You're not supporting me. You don't believe me. We're married. What do you mean? What do you want me to do? You want a divorce? You want to break up? What do you mean? Well, you don't believe me, so you must want a divorce. Come on, it's your fault. You're trying to destroy our family. You're trying to disrupt our family." And it's just like, whoa, hold on. This is all my fault and you're the one lying to me, but it's my fault. So again, they're forcing someone to believe them. They're forcing their hand. And it's just kind of like, okay, I don't have any other position but to be with you.
This is DeAnna. Audience members, please feel free to chime in at any time. Melissa saying that they're trying to, they don't want their flaws to be pointed out, right? And if they get
Yeah.
caught in their mess, they're like, oh, no, 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 no. I mean, they are skilled at the action of manipulation and they have their panic attack or their paranoia to basically try to cover up that lie to make themselves look good. And like, how dare you try to tell me I'm wrong? Oh, something's wrong with me. Oh, baby, let me help you understand, make this math make sense, right? They're really trying to make people look bad. I'm telling you, they are schemers in terms of manipulation. So, and I've seen it in men. So, again, I mean, women too, right? But I have seen it in men. I think it really doesn't matter, right? Either way, narcissists are schemers and manipulators. Yeah, this is a discussion that we can open up and have further talk on. This is DeAnna speaking. I've been watching this conversation back and forth with our panelists. It's got me thinking, as a child, it's hard to let go of the idea of, a role model and what do you get exposure to in terms of what role models look like, right? So if you have to remember that, we live in our own worlds, children live in their own worlds. And oftentimes people force us to live into their own world, which is unfamiliar to us, right? So as I mentioned again about the security blanket, you want me to believe you because, you're making that look like I'm supposed to believe your story. But how do you expect us to understand what you're doing that is wrong if they don't actually see what they're doing is wrong? Especially, going back to the deaf and hard of hearing community, that's important. Yes,
Yes, and let's
Jillian.
think about childhood too. A high percentage of narcissism is hereditary, and so think about parents and how they fuss at their children as the kids are growing up, and then after that, what ends up happening is think about what happens to the child. Parents say, "You made me do this to you. You made me fuss at you. You caused me to fuss at you or to punish you or discipline you." And the child never learned how to apologize or get apologies or receive apologies because the parents didn't do it. The parent didn't say, "I'm so sorry I lost my cool. I'm so sorry I yelled at you. I should have treated you in a better way, even though you did that." Because all of us have vulnerable moments. We all do. We have weak moments. We have flaws. We're humans, but we have to teach children that it's okay to have flaws. It's okay to have those moments. You're still loved. You're still lovable. We all have flaws. You can still be a beautiful person with flaws, and you can still have flaws and still apologize if you make a mistake. You know, you're still loved in spite of your flaws. And so, children being able to learn that is important, but yet the kid is learning instead that, "Oh, you yelled at me and it's my fault." Okay. And they internalize that feeling and accept it as they're the individuals who cause the parents to treat them like that. And in turn, and when they grow up, they basically project that same behavior outwardly in their relationships. And they say, "I behave this way because of you." And they blame their partners. And again, sometimes people yell at their partners and things like that, but you can still say sorry. Like if I have a temper or something, I can, apologize to my partner. That doesn't mean that I
Hmm.
am cared for less or they're cared for less. So again, there is a lot of influence that comes from how parents raise their child and teach them how to behave as well and the ways they model those behaviors.
This is DeAnna speaking, right? It could be hereditary or thinking about victim mentalities, right? How do people just automatically say, "Oh, heck, listen now, girl, I am a victim,"
Hmm.
right? They play the victim all the time. They are good at it. I am a victim, and we're good at doing that, right? And they start to believe it, right? So therefore, you now, why are you blaming the victim, right? We should need to look at ourselves, right? We have to think about how are we playing that victim card? Oh, well, I'm the victim. You did this. You accuse me. I'm lying. Wait, but are you truly the victim? Right? You are a victim by your parents and them passing that down to you. But do you want to continue living with that kind of mentality, with that kind of mindset? Do you want to take that card and play it all the time? I mean, you can try me, baby, but if there is that,
Yes.
you know, idea of being afraid or shame or what have you, I mean, you can always play games, but I think you can only play it for too long, right? Where you actually have to look at yourself and really figure out, okay, what is truth and what is non-truth? Yes, Thomas.
Okay. So when we are in a large group with several narcissists together, it is a problem. And I have seen it happen. I mean, I have seen it happen. And I really have to sit back, and really pay attention about what I'm going to say. I have to be intentional about what I'm going to say because I can be easily fooled in that situation. You really do have to be mindful of what's happening, who's lying, what's being said, of all the interactions. It's really a mental juggling game, a mind game, when you have several narcissists in the same room. And I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is Deanna speaking here. Let me take a look at our viewers' questions. So, how do you know the difference between affection and love bombing in the early stages of a relationship? Let's turn to that discussion. Give me 1 second. I'm a bit blurry, so I want to just hold on 1 second. Technical difficulties here. Please hold one moment.
Yeah, we understand.
Hey, y'all, I'm back. All right. uh, but basically, if you didn't see what I signed, let me repeat it. So, how can you tell the difference between what is affection and love bombing in the early stages of a relationship? I want to see Lilly and then MeLisa. Yes.
Hey, so when you first meet a person, they're an expert at making you feel like you're the only person in their line of sight. They're fully attentive on you and giving you all of this attention, flattery, telling you how beautiful you are, and really just being very generous with the affection, maybe over generous with gifts. And, in normal interactions with other people, there's a balance. But with a narcissist, there's a huge imbalance in their affection. And they basically take less time than other people do. So, for example, they may be constantly texting you in your face, just giving you affection, always being generous with their words. You feel like you can do no wrong, and you feeling great. You feel like you're the apple of their eye, but yet that is superficial love. And so when you see a person doing all of that and being very generous, that is their way of catching you. Um, and you're completely falling head over heels. So again, in the beginning, it's just like, oh, this is too good to be true.
This is Melissa here. I agree with you, Lily. In the early stages, a narcissist will make sure to know exactly what kind of person you are and know how to manipulate you from there. So they're watching your every step. Secondly, they're all over you, over the top, extra, fluff, sky in the pie, like pie in the sky, everything. Overnight they just are all over you. Oh, I love you, babe. Oh, you are an apple of my eye, like you said, Lily. Oh my gosh, right? So you start to feel, oh my goodness, he must truly love me. Yes, I understand, right? So he's got you, right? But you need to really wake up and, smell the coffee. Because again, narcissists are great at being able to manipulate you, really to get you. And so again, once you get trapped in that love bomb, you are in their hands. And so it's almost like the narcissist is like, once I have you, I know how to work with you. I know how to control you better. You are now my puppet in the hands of a puppeteer. And so it's really easy, for you to now distance yourself from family and friends and now be a lock or a magnet to this one who is the narcissist. And so they are in full control of you. And again, the person who, you are in this, you think, oh my gosh, he loves me. That's my baby. And that's again, they're now saying, oh, I want you. This is who you are to me. And again, they're just overly generous with gifts or what have you. And they're proud of you and they're showing you off and braggadocious about who you are. At the end of the day, it's empty. It's all fluff. It's over the top and it's exaggeratory and it's not real. So you have to pay attention. When it's too much in the beginning, it's too much in the beginning. Red flag. And you need to really stay in connection with your friends, text with your friends, and say, if I've been out with this person for more than 2 hours and you haven't heard from me, check in on me. So this is DeAnna. Let's hear from Jillian and then our Zoom audience.
Hey, yes, narcissism means that the relationship moves at warp speed. I mean, it's super fast, just like Lily described. And looking back, I've experienced narcissistic abusive relationship myself. And looking back, I can see how that happened, how that person told me that he loved me and he was so in love with me. The love of his life after just 2 weeks, after we started talking, just 2 weeks later, and I'm now looking back like, wow, I remember thinking, oh, he loved me and I love that person. Okay. And we just, we're in that relationship. And again, that's just scratching the surface. That's just the first move that happened. The second move was to get together very fast. In a hurry to live together, be together. I can't be without you anymore. You're the perfect companion for me. And you remember that example I used during our last panel discussion when we had to take issues? Remember, I used an example. The word I used was mirroring. A narcissist will mirror you to make sure, like whatever your dreams are, whatever your goals are, your visions for yourself, whatever you like. They will, whatever you don't like, they will mirror those things. Your lifestyle, it will basically be like, oh my gosh, we have so much in common. Everything is in common. You rarely disagree with them, and they're like, okay, I like that too. You have discussions and things like that, but you almost never disagree in the beginning of the relationship. Everything just seems to work out. You all have whatever you want, they have whatever you like, they like. And I remember thinking, wow, I found my perfect match. I found the perfect match for myself. We were definitely twin flames. I hate that word, y'all, twin flames. Ugh. Anyway, yeah, it just felt like that though, you know? And once you move in together and you sign the lease, and you get pregnant, you have kids, they put a ring on your finger, you get married, and it's from there you're just really stuck in that relationship. And then from there, that's when you get to see their true colors. You get to see the narcissists who they are, and they're completely opposite. You don't actually have things in common. It's either their way or your way. I mean, whatever your philosophies are, your logic, your thoughts about different things, your concepts, your goals, things
Mm.
you want for your life, nothing matches. You completely diverge. You're unaligned after all. And the narcissist will make sure to drag you back in line because you have to follow their way, or it's their way or the highway. So again, that is just something that yeah, that's just something I need to share with you.
This is DeAnna speaking. We have 20 minutes left. So yes, Thomas. It's Thomas here. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
I met a
Hmm.
man in his when I was in my 20s. And when I met him, I remember he was arguing with his girlfriend, and he said that she must submit to him, point blank, period. And I remember thinking I didn't understand, of course, the background of their relationship. And then a bit later, what I found out was that he was an alcoholic. Okay. He was an alcoholic, and he was abused when he was younger as well. And that abuse impacted him in adulthood. And yes, it took away his power and his agency at a certain point, but he misused how that impacted him as an adult and became more narcissistic and abusive. And so when I learned all of that, I was shocked really as to how all of that played together. I was shocked at that kind of a behavior. I mean, wow.
This is DeAnna speaking. So Amber, MeLisa Swope, or Lisa, excuse me, to the interpreter. If you have any comments that you wish to share, please come on. Feel free to have yourself unmuted. So again, also audience members, feel free to chime in, share your comments or questions.
This Mrs. Swope, and I was glad when you all started talking about the women also, because I've worked in the federal government for a long time, and I've seen these behaviors that you all are talking about. And I was glad when she said women as well as men, because I've seen it from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is DeAnna speaking. And that's the reason why I wanted to open up this dialogue. And it's not just in the deaf community, but it's in the hearing community as well, right? The non-deaf community. How do we understand how to communicate? What does different communication styles look like, right? This is a topic that we need to have a talk about because oftentimes deaf people don't have access to that information, right? Hearing folks may, but deaf in the deaf community, they may not. And how does that, they get lost in the process, right? So hearing people can get that information. They know, okay, yep, they're hearing the incidental knowledge, they're hearing the tone, right, of the different folks that are sharing about narcissism. Whereas deaf people is almost like a puzzle, right? They're trying to figure out what does this mean? What does that mean? They're working to try to figure out what they need to do. Where again, people like hearing people like, "Yep, that's narcissism." Girl, can't you tell? That's narcissism right there. I noticed that yesterday before he even did it, or she did it, right? But because in the deaf community, this language deprivation that happens, they are like, "Is that real? I'm not sure." Right? It's a longer process, and there are various dynamics that are within the deaf community versus in the hearing community. And oftentimes, I think this is a conversation we need to have more often in the deaf community so they can catch up to speed regarding narcissism. Any more additional comments from the audience? Yes, Jillian, I see you.
Yes, and why I spend a lot of time in using ASLI's messages is because it's important to describe situations and experiences so that people can understand what narcissism looks like in the deaf community. And like we have said several times during this live stream, it's it goes unseen. It goes completely overlooked, it's unseen, it's unrecognized often because it's hard to recognize it when it's happening. And the more we know, as deaf individuals, the more we can recognize it. And once you see it, I just want you to know you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it. Once you recognize it, you'll see it more often. And so that's the reason why we're explaining so much of this in American Sign Language, to give information to the deaf community to understand what this looks like, what that trauma can look like. And it's in our language so that people can recognize it a lot more and become more aware. It's just very critical for the deaf community. You're absolutely right, DeAnna.
This is DeAnna speaking. I actually have another question for us to discuss. This may be the last question. Identifying the difference between self-confidence and narcissism in an individual, either a partner or whomever. What does that look like? Yes, Jillian.
Yes, I just have one comment to add. Watch the language that that individual uses. Watch the language that they use. They'll say I versus me versus you. So, for example, during an argument with that person, you're trying to have a discussion and you approach them and you say, "Hey, you hurt my feelings." Now, watch how they respond to that comment. They'll say, "Your behavior caused me to go off on you. I did that because of you." And if you say, "Okay, I understand that I did do A, B, and C, and I apologize for that, and I apologize, but your behavior, you need to work on shifting your behavior." So just notice that language response, what a healthy person will respond and what the narcissist may respond. And they'll use blaming language, and put it all on them, on you, instead of being apologetic about their behavior and actions and taking accountability. Now, this is Thomas. When we think about narcissism or narcissists, when you're in a room with a narcissist and someone else doesn't know, if you know that someone is a narcissist, watch them. They'll study your responses. So you have to pay attention to what's going on in the room. And they don't apologize. And they're not tactful about things either. So you'll see a narcissist and you can recognize that behavior immediately in the room when you're with the person.
This is DeAnna speaking. MeLisa, did you want to add anything? Or Lilly? Either of you? Either MeLisa or Lilly, did you want to add to those comments? This is MeLisa speaking. This is MeLisa speaking. So I'd have to say that this is, a person who's narcissist, they feel as though they deserve it. They deserve this attention. And where they're getting all of the looks and the stares and the compliments. They don't have to work for it. They're just in demand on it or entitled to it. They feel as though they deserve it, as I said before. But ask the question, who gets something without any effort being put into it? Who gets something free without work? So again, understanding what love looks like, and you can be in love. But if you truly are in love, sometimes that love can blind you. And you're not able to see that, oh, well, he loves me or she loves you. But there are a crew of people and where you can talk with to figure out, I don't know if I'm truly understanding this, or is this truly love, right? Because being in love, sometimes you can miss a lot of things. And so you want to have your tribe to be able to help you wake up and see. So a point is you really need a team of folks that are in your village, that is in your tribe, that can really say, you're moving too fast, really, to be going into a marriage, right? Giving them feedback. Feedback doesn't mean that they don't like you. Feedback is that they love you. Feedback is that you're trying to help. They're trying to help you, right? But at the same time, if you see a friend that reacts defensively to that feedback, then you just quietly back out and think to yourself, where do they get their help? And that leaves them to a spirit of isolation. But at the same time, a person needs to trust their village, trust that the village will show you the truth and guide you to the truth, and make sure that you're not diving into something that you're not ready for. Because oftentimes love can blind you, right? I was quote unquote in love as a baby. And I realized, you know, When I said, when I became pregnant, I said, you know
Yes.
what? This can't be so. You know, you know, again, for you all, it's not too late. But for me, I know it's something that I have seen and research has proven that, right, when you're in love, your mind, body, and soul is intertwined with that love. And sometimes it's hard for you to really see things once you're in love because, your heart and your mind are in two different places, but at the same time, your heart is feeling one way, but you also have to still be in your right mind to know what is truth and not truth.
Yes, and I basically want to add that narcissists don't have the ability to love, period. However, they are experts at studying other individuals' behaviors, internalizing those behaviors and copying them and projecting them out onto others. And it seems like love, but it's not actually love. It's just behaviors that they have learned. So narcissists tend to expect people in relationship with them to pretty much submit to them. Like anytime you say that they are wrong, they feel like you should feel like they're always right. And if you engage in an argument or discussion with them and they are not in agreement with you, it will be a problem, you know. And whenever you're trying to share perspectives with a narcissist, they can't share perspectives, unlike a person who is not a narcissist. So, for example, if you're using your phone and you're telling them, "Oh, I love you," and you're talking to them, and maybe you're on the phone and maybe you're on the iPhone and there's something happening, basically they will blame you. So you're in a conversation with them and they'll basically be like, maybe we should break up and you should be with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Jillian. I just want to say, yes, exactly. I want to add to that, Lily. One thing to really pay attention to is this is not for all narcissists, okay? But many narcissists will do this. Watch, think about their relationship history. Most, well, no, not most, many narcissists are chronic cheaters because of this. Keep in mind that a narcissist they say they have to have a feed, they need a supply. Okay, so think about this. Think about a leech. You know how a leech is a parasite? It will cling on to something and use that as its supply. That's the same as a narcissist. It uses you for the money, the house, your status, to be well liked, to be popular, and to have a higher status in the community, a good reputation, you know? And once all of that is gone and the supply has been sucked out, then they will go to someone else. And so they'll
Mm-hmm.
keep you on the hook and they'll look for another supply and they find a new person that they can bring in. And basically, when you catch them on it, they'll blame you. And they'll just be like, that person's crazy. She's obsessed with me. She's stalking me. This person is trying to force me to break up with you. It's them. And so they'll triangulate the relationship. And it's still the narcissist telling the other individual that they're in love, quote unquote, with them. But of course, we know that that is not real love. But again, they're only doing that because they've used all of your money, all of everything they can take from you, and they're looking for another supply. And so once that they have this other third and the second individual on the hook, and they've already have them committed, they will discard the first person they were in a relationship with and feed off
Mm-hmm.
the other individual. And even though
Mm-hmm.
you've invested your life into that person, and it doesn't matter, they'll discard you like you're disposable, like trash.
Mm-hmm.
And really, narcissists don't have, oh, I was ready to say something mean. Let me correct myself. But really, they don't have the ability to, narcissists don't have the ability to take accountability and be the bigger person and say, you know what, I'm just going to break up with you. I don't want to, I'm going to be the bigger person and just break up with you, but instead they start targeting and blaming their first partner. And and then the narcissist can basically look like, hey, to their second partner, hey, my first partner
Mm-hmm.
like broke up with me. They don't want me anymore. I'm so heartbroken. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, but I love you. I
Mm-hmm.
care about you, all of those things.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're in a relationship with a whole other second person. I mean, it's a mess. So again, look at this individual's relationship history if you're curious about this or unsure. I'm sure there's some kind of chronic cheating going on in their past, and not all narcissists are cheaters, but it does happen in a lot of narcissistic um, relationships where the narcissist is a cheater. That's something that can be found pretty frequently.
This is DeAnna here, beautifully stated. We have 6 minutes left, so just going back to what Jillian said about how, a victim can be healed, right? What steps can one take, right, to recover or to heal after being in a relationship with a person who is narcissistic? What does that look like, right? Healing looks differently to each person. And of course, we don't want to jump into another relationship after just experience one with a narcissist. But, again, that could impact your confidence, that could impact who you are because you could have flashbacks to how you've been traumatized by being in a relationship with a narcissist. But how do you move forward, right? What do those red flags look like um, in a relationship with a narcissist? If this is MeLisa speaking, if you really care about a person, you would check in with them to make sure that they're good. A narcissist doesn't do that. A narcissist does not check in with you. A relationship is an agreement, conversation, dialogue, back and forth. A relationship with a narcissist is a one-way street, their way or the highway. That's it. And so, you think about, a woman may say, oh, that man is fine and they have the problem, they're the ones that have issues. Um, and typically it's the woman that always is bowing down to a man. But again, depending on who the man is, again, we have to think about how the community is diverse, right? I know, for instance, in certain cultures, they want women to be submissive to men for power reasons and for control reasons. But, oftentimes men want the praise, they want the attention. But behind that, they really want the woman to be submissive. But that's not in a relationship. We want agreement, or we want, even if it's a healthy disagreement. So again, it doesn't matter whether it's a man to a woman or a woman to a man. There is some kind of submissive nature with a relationship, whether a man to a woman or a woman to a man. And again, you have to think about a relationship is a two-way street, not just one way. It's not just whether it's the male that has said it and you accede to it, or the woman that has said something and you accede to it. You need to really hold true to yourself, and both individuals are valued. This is DeAnna speaking. When you think about the community and how diverse we are, we have to think about healing and what that looks like within our community. FYI, we have 3 minutes left. Jillian.
Yes, and I'm still on a healing journey from the narcissistic abusive relationship I was in 14 months ago. And really, I'm learning to love myself again because one big thing the narcissist did was constantly demoralize me. And so I got to the point where I actually believed him. I believed him. I believed that I was no good. I believed that I was just not a good person. I believed that I was weak. I believed all of those things. And once I got out of that relationship, it was disorienting. I almost felt like, I was a single mother. I was afraid. I was like, oh, I was taught that I can't, that I'm not strong enough to be independent. I couldn't be by myself. I felt like I was weak, lousy person. And I just felt like, I was discarded. I found myself alone after that. I was disposed of, is what it felt like. And it's just like I have to learn how to trust myself again. I really had lost all the trust and confidence I had in myself. I didn't have any confidence in myself at all anymore because he was constantly criticizing all of my opinions, my responses to different situations, telling me I was constantly wrong, causing me not to believe in myself over time. That happened. And I just constantly feel like I was wrong no matter what I thought or what I was doing. I just couldn't trust myself at all after leaving that relationship. And I'm still not fully healed from my trauma as of yet, but I am a work in progress. And I think it's going to be ongoing for the rest of my life, trying to heal from that narcissistic abusive relationship. It is going to be a lifelong journey for me, for sure, I think. And this is Thomas. Thank you for sharing that, Jillian.
And this is DeAnna. Likewise, thank you for sharing that, that painful experience, Jillian. right? Individuals who are victims will listen to your story, and that could guide them. That could lead them to really take a look at themselves and say, how do they repair themselves? How do they rebuild, recover, and move forward? And that their story, their experience is for another. Um, and thinking about love bombing, we're actually going to have a conversation about that on July 26th. So see us on our next episode about love bombing. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you illustrious panelists, and thank you our audience. Have a beautiful night. Bye everyone.